大家好, I'm Nathan Rich, aka 火锅大王. You know, this new novel coronavirus situation in China has got everyone on edge out there in the world. But one thing I've noticed recently is that hidden amongst the valid reporting and information, there's a tendency for people who don't live in China to offer their opinions on the matter. In the case of medical professionals or qualified officials, that seems pretty standard. But today I want to talk to you about a video by a boy living in America with lots of negative opinions about China. As you can see in his latest fear-mongering video, China's coronavirus is much worse than you think. I never really thought about English teachers before coming to China. I knew they existed. Some are actually teachers, but most are just random people with no qualifications and no life. They want to raise themselves out of poverty, so they take a job abroad. Often when they arrive in a foreign country, they reinvent themselves. They aren't English teachers, they're doctor trainers.
Here's a picture of me training some nurses last week. Here's a picture of me training a group of doctors.
Or in this case, it seems this English teacher is also a medical professional. Or at least he better be, because he's changing medical information before giving it out. I've long known about a certain alt-right element out there of anti-Chinese activists pretending to be interested in China. Normally, I encourage people to ignore them when they say things like, Chinese people don't care about their children, because that's just pure racism that pretty much defeats itself. But when the same racist elements start to give medical advice to people in China, I take it seriously. So let's take a look at what this English teacher says about the coronavirus, shall we? China's coronavirus is much worse than you think. Is it? Because while I don't think people should be scared, I also think people already know it's pretty serious. But okay, wise one, teach me. Teach me just how bad it is. Teach me like you teach a child the word broom.
I was calling this amongst my Chinese friends that at some point the government or, Chinese people are going to attribute this new coronavirus, this new SARS, to America and say that America planted this on China. And yeah, that's going around in the WeChat circles right now.
You're right, man. Those Chinese government or Chinese people are so dumb, am I right? I mean, it's not like there's any evidence America was developing a virus exactly like this one years ago or anything, right? Oh, wait. So people speculating in a time of fear based on actual evidence is a thing. Weird. Now, of course, we don't have evidence of a crime being committed, which is why few take this kind of speculation seriously. But to ignore this as a remote possibility would be pretty dumb. I mean, the United States has absolutely been proven to infect populations with diseases. That's known. But more importantly, it would be inhuman. It's normal for humans to look for causes of diseases, like how people in the United States said the CIA created AIDS. I guess the Chinese aren't as stupid as you're portraying them after all. It turns out they're humans. And did you call this new SARS? No, it's not the same as the virus we called SARS. It's not a new strand or new strain of SARS. Or at least that's according to the World Health Organization. But then again, I don't know, you are an English teacher, so maybe you're right and they're wrong. Well, with your irresponsible ad-libbing of information out of the way, I'm ready to hear more about what your expert opinion is.
The death rate with SARS, well, at least this brand of SARS, it seems to range from about 0 to 50% of the cases.
50%? Oh my God! I've just learned from this English teacher that the novel coronavirus is as deadly as the bubonic plague. I have no reason to doubt this guy other than all the fake stuff he said so far, but just out of curiosity, let me compare what people way more stupid and less qualified than him say. Let's see here. 6,062 cases. So there must be upwards of 3,000 deaths. Strange, because it says here there's been 132 deaths. That works out to be about 2%. Well, I guess we know now why you teach English instead of math.
Many are claiming that this virus originated in Wuhan.
Man, I would love to let you finish a sentence, but everything you say is so stupid, it's really hard to do. I know you're used to talking to 4-year-olds who are instructed not to talk back to you, but what do you mean are claiming? Do you have some secret teachers union memo about the true origins of the virus we need to know about?
Being brought on by seafood at a wet market.
Brought on by seafood at a wet market. Hang on. So what you're telling all your anti-Chinese followers is that seafood, which is dead, is the source of the virus. Hold the press, everyone. I know that at the time he made this video, medical experts thought that either snakes or bats were the source. Living snakes or living bats. But no, screw that. According to this kid, the virus is actually a zombie virus. It comes from dead seafood, magically, and infects anyone who breathes dead seafood air. Yeah, I don't think you really get how viruses work, teacher. I mean, according to Scientific American, quote, no one has ever reported finding a coronavirus infecting aquatic animals. You get that? No coronavirus has ever been found in any aquatic animal ever. Did you even research this video, or are you just literally making it up as you go? And anyway, wow, I'm only 1 minute into this video? How does anyone watch this drivel? Okay, gotta go on.
If you've been to a Chinese wet market, you will know exactly how a megavirus or a bacterial infection could begin here.
I mean, it's like every sentence is intentionally laced with stupidity. The way a megavirus outbreak could happen is there are live animals. The end. Don't need anything to do with wet market or anything else. Animal to human transmission. The end. You are the one pretending it's caused by dead seafood, magically, and you also bring up bacterial infection. You seem to have a hard time understanding the difference between viruses and bacteria. But maybe it's just me. Then you go on about how you think Chinese wet markets are gross, and then...
These markets are an absolute paradise for viral and bacterial growth and mutation.
Oh, it's not just me. You don't understand even what a virus is. Apparently you think that viruses grow and thrive on dead stuff. In other words, you seem to think viruses are a form of bacteria. Well, then I guess we know why you don't teach biology.
Now this is the dangerous part.
Okay, get ready. What's the dangerous part?
I'm very skeptical about these figures, and a simple look at history shows us that this is nothing new.
The dangerous part is you're skeptical about figures. Well, you've been right about so many things so far. We're definitely putting a lot of importance on what you think. I gotta speed this up or I'm gonna talk forever. So now he brings up SARS and says this about when it hit Hong Kong.
When SARS hit Hong Kong, they quarantined and dealt with the outbreak with utmost vigilance.
Which one of the kids in your class told you that? Are you going to sit here and claim Hong Kong did a good job with SARS? All right, I really wanted to move forward, but you're leaving me with no choice. I guess then in your extensive WeChat research, you didn't come across this LSU report that says, quote, initially visitors were allowed in hospitals where SARS patients were housed, which resulted in spread to the community. No? How about this nurse telling the New York Times that, quote, we didn't know what precautions to take? Oh, that's right. According to you, Hong Kong didn't know anything about the disease in the mainland until it was too late. Except that this investigation showed that as far back as February 11th, Hong Kong knew there was a massive pneumonia outbreak in Guangdong. So they did know. Still think they dealt with utmost vigilance? Here, Hong Kong warned of a health system collapse. Los Angeles Times, Hong Kong faulted for SARS response. A panel of international experts said the Hong Kong government's initial response to the SARS outbreak was, quote, seriously flawed. It cites poor communication. It says the Hong Kong government's response to the epidemic was one of the issues contributing to massive protests. Strange, I didn't hear anything about that in your little video. It says the Hong Kong government downplayed the danger and their response was too slow. Okay, maybe that's not enough for you. I'm going to try to give you one more. This is from Nature magazine. I'm sure you never heard of them because they don't make kids' books. But believe me when I say they are no joke. Health authorities in Hong Kong are coming under intense criticism over their use of a drug to treat SARS. Why? Because the drug doesn't treat SARS. Instead, it damages the victim's organs. And at the time this was written in 2003, the Hong Kong health authorities knew the drug didn't treat SARS and knew it caused organ damage, possibly killing people faster, and they continued to use it anyway. By the way, you were more than twice as likely to die if you got SARS in Hong Kong than in the mainland. Is that what you call a good job? Look, this isn't about Hong Kong's numerous mistakes dealing with SARS. These people are humans, and humans do make mistakes. The point is you're pretending like the mainland is some big bad entity while Hong Kong is a bastion of medical innovation. Wrong. Anyway, so then the video criticizes the mainland for not being transparent with the SARS information back then. And though I wasn't here, I agree that at least from present day, it does seem like they screwed that up. Then he says a doctor he talked to told him he had orders to tell people not to leave their homes. There's no doctor talking in this video, which is convenient because you don't bother to mention where this doctor was located at. For almost all of China, that advice would have been correct. In fact, that's the main thing we're being told now. Don't go out and do unnecessary stuff if you want to stay the safest. But now we're going to get schooled on just how bad this advice really is.
With an elderly generation that is largely undereducated, most people just went out anyway and continued to buy and sell at the wet markets. Fast forward and thousands had contracted the virus and the beginning of a pandemic started.
Sorry, what's your evidence that SARS started at a wet market again? Oh, you don't have any. You're just telling us this story about a doctor from who knows where who told you something, and then just like that, wet markets caused SARS.
This, however, is not limited to disease.
What, however? Wet markets? Old people being uneducated, which makes most people ignore doctors?
When the 2008 Sichuan earthquake happened that killed 70,000 people, the officials knew why and shut down all communication, which ended up in more deaths.
Wow, finally something that is true. I mean, you weren't even close with the death count, but definitely the government shut down all communications, which caused more deaths. So you're saying Chinese people didn't know there was an earthquake and people just all laid around dying while no one cared because no one knew. Wow, that's an evil China you're talking about. Let me tell you about the China I'm talking about. I'm talking about the China here in the real world. Many websites converted their homepage to black and white. Sina.com and Sohu. Major internet portals limited their homepages to news items and removed all advertisements. Chinese video sharing websites Youku and Tudou displayed a black background and placed multiple videos showing earthquake footage and news reports. The Chinese version of MSN, cn.msn.com, also displayed banner ads about the earthquake and the relief efforts. Other entertainment websites, including various gaming sites such as the Chinese service World of Warcraft, had shut down altogether or had corresponding links to earthquake donations. Casinos in Macau closed down. All mainland Chinese television stations canceled all regularly scheduled programming, displayed their logo in grayscale, and replaced their canceled programs with live earthquake footage from CCTV1 for multiple days after the quake. Even pay television channels such as Channel V had their programs suspended. Strange how different the reality is from your dystopian hell on earth description. It turns out that everyone in China knew about the earthquake. Hell, most people actually felt the earthquake. You see, an earthquake that big could be felt throughout the country. But what about the government cutting off communications in order to intentionally kill people, like you said? Wrong again. China Mobile had more than 2,300 base stations suspended due to power disruption or severe telecommunications traffic congestion. Half of the wireless communications were lost in the Sichuan province. China Unicom service in 5 counties was cut off with more than 700 towers suspended. Not by the government, by the earthquake. Oh, so the 18th deadliest earthquake of all time actually damages power plants and cell towers. I guess that's why you're not teaching geology, huh? This was one of the worst tragedies in China's recent history, and it was made worse by mistakes, poorly constructed buildings in rural areas, and other factors. No one is proud of the disaster, but the way you summarize it here is just disgusting.
There's a thing in Chinese culture called the Mandate of Heaven, which basically means that when a dynasty is at its end, it will be marked by a great tragedy.
Wrong again. The Mandate of Heaven means that in the way that cat means not having a cat. Is that simple enough to understand? Maybe you should watch my Epic China series to learn about China a little bit. I guess this is why you're not a history teacher.
You don't believe me? You think face isn't that important in China? Well, check this out. Literally in a village 7 kilometers away from the South China seafood city where the virus started, they organized 100,000 people to share a massive community meal. And just 2 days before this massive harmonious event, 59 cases were reported in the area. State media managed to promote a communal banquet where everyone eats from the same dishes together.
What does this have to do with face? And You know that newspaper doesn't say 100,000 people, right? Do you know any Chinese at all? How about you ask someone to help you translate it? I mean, do you even know any Chinese people anymore? Speaking of Chinese, why don't you add Chinese subtitles to your videos so the people you're talking about can actually understand you if they don't speak English? Scared of their reaction when they find out what you're saying about them? Anyway, the Wuhan local government, not the national government as you suggested, promoted this event. Every mistake to you is some kind of evidence of a big conspiracy. Except mistakes in Hong Kong. Those just aren't true. But mistakes in the mainland? Evil communists trying to kill everyone to save face. Disgusting. Then he just sort of rambles about how he doesn't like the government and says this.
Top-down leadership means that the government has always waited into the last minute to deal with a crisis because no one wants their head on the line to break the bad news. That's how top-down politics work.
Really? So, what was the issue with Katrina? Top-down politics? And the extremely slow and ineffective U.S. government response to Hurricane Maria? More top-down politics? What are you even talking about? Remember how we responded on 9/11? Jets did nothing while planes slowly flew across the country to kill people. The first responders lived in a nightmare of logistics errors and massive inefficiency before buildings collapsed on them from shoddy material, killing even more. Do you hold America as a top-down political body? What are you comparing China to exactly? Well, I guess this is why you don't teach political science. Then this ridiculous video goes on to quote the Chinese president via CCTV.
Party committees, governments, and relevant departments at all levels should put people's lives and health first.
Okay, so the president is telling the entire government at, quote, all levels to put people's lives and health first. All levels.
There were no messages about how to address the crisis, just that now it's on the local communist authorities to deal with it. Talk about passing the blame.
Well, guy who is inexplicably talking about China all the time, even though you apparently know nothing about it, if you actually lived here, you would know the citizens already know what to do. We get messages from the government all the time about how to deal with the crisis. You don't because you don't live here. And you just said now it's on the local authorities to deal with it. Did you miss the part when he said at all levels? Do I need to school you on some English here? When the president of China says all levels of the government need to do something, he's talking about all levels of the government. Pretty clear, I would have thought. So no, not passing the blame. Then he goes on about how dangerous the Spring Festival is going to be and how everyone's going to die or something. And then he says this.
A huge chunk of the population, especially the people that grew up in the lost generation, do not believe in Western medicine or even very basic elements of bacteria or viruses.
Wrong. They believe in bacteria and viruses. In fact, I've never once met a single Chinese person that doesn't believe any Western medicine works. Ever. They just believe that pharmaceutical medications aren't always the answer to everything. Doesn't mean they don't understand bacteria and viruses. I really don't understand how anyone could take this guy seriously about China. If I want to learn something about the etymology of the word mop, I'll ask him. But China, he knows nothing. God, when does this video end?
I'm terrified for the Chinese people who are not being properly educated on what to do in this very dangerous time. It's not time to have a peaceful and joyous spring festival.
Again, we are all educated on what to do. And that's to go home, relax with family, and generally stay away from crowds. Wear masks. Stay safe. Believe it or not, even 100,000 cases wouldn't be a lot in China. So it's quite rare to be anywhere near anyone at all who has ever even seen one single SARS or novel coronavirus case. So yeah, worry less, be safe more, go home, relax, let the professionals do their work. Help out any way your community needs you to. That is the damn information on what to do. Then he goes on this long rant about how everything is done locally to appease the next level up and something about how his little scooter was banned or something.
And I think you're going to see some serious problems coming out of this epidemic. I think the cases are going to go through the roof.
It's not an epidemic. And remember when he said he was terrified for Chinese citizens? Well, then he spends a few minutes posting jokes and memes about the sickness. Laughing at the sickness, laughing at the disease and those affected.
In this case, they're handing out hongbao full of face masks to prevent the spread of the virus, which I thought was pretty funny.
And then, just to top it all off, after he's done laughing at everyone, he gives the exact same advice the government has already given us numerous times. You know, the advice he just criticized and implied would lead to more deaths. Then he spends an entire minute asking for money, and the video is just over. For those of us actually in China, we'll stay strong. We'll keep actually supporting people here who need help, even while certain people in America make videos mocking them. To us, this is serious. I'll probably talk a bit more about the virus situation in the future, so stay tuned. I'm back from Spring Festival and full of energy. Until then, thanks everybody. 谢谢.